Misfortunes in Madrid. Rizal went to Madrid to bring his protest against the injustices done by Governor Weyler and the Dominicans to the Calamba farmers at the Ministry of Colonies headed by Minister Fabi. The meeting was fruitless, no compromise was reached. He further learned that there is an ejectment order against his family and the Calamba tenants, and his family were forcibly ejected from their homes and were then living in the house of Narcisa. Rizal even asked his comrades in the Association Hispano-Filipina to assist him. Asked the Spanish media La Justicia El Dia El Globo to publish article about the issue to exert pressure to the government. Del Pilar acted as his lawyer and Dominador Gomez, secretary of the association, helped him too. Blumentritt urged him to talk with Queen Regent Maria Cristina, the ruler of Spain, but he could not because he doesn't have powerful friends nor the gold to grease their palms. Another disappointment of Jose Rizal is when Jose Panganiban died. Jose Panganiban, called the Avenger of Filipino honor, a good friend and co-worker of Rizal. He was Bicolandia's greatest contribution to the historic campaign for reforms, more popularly called the propaganda movement. He wrote articles for La Solidaridad under the pen names of Mapa and JMP. Died in Barcelona, Spain on August 19, 1890. Rizal wrote the eulogy to Panganiban, whom he admired as an energetic patriot who had pure love for the country. Duel for Nelly's honor. August 1890, Rizal had a heated argument with Antonio Luna. The reason is Luna made a tactless remarks about Nelly, the girl he had courted but chose Rizal. Rizal was offended by Luna's remarks and attempted to attack the latter. The two exchanged words. Rizal challenged Luna to a duel. He offered Luna to choose between pistol or saber. Luna chose the saber. Luna finally realized his mistakes and asked his forgiveness from Rizal, who accepted the apology. Princess Lauretania, a pro-friar journalist, had made a disrespectful remarks against the Rizal family and the Calamba tenants in the anti-Filipino newspaper La Epoca. He wrote that the family and the tenants deserve what happened to them for failing to pay the Dominicans land rents. Upon reading the offensive article, Rizal sent a message to Retanya, challenging him into a duel, in whatever weapon he would choose, anywhere and anytime. After that, Retanya immediately made a public retraction and an apology to Rizal and his family.
Amidst Rizal's frustrations in Madrid, he received a letter from Leonor Rivera, his girlfriend for 11 years, informing him that she was getting married. It pained his heart greatly. He still loved Leonor despite having courted girls before. He grew pale and sickly, having been jilted by Leonor. In his letter to Blumentritt, he accused Leonor of infidelity. His love turned to hatred. Galiciano Apacible, a USD friend, consoled him by saying there are many girls in the world. He informed Rizal that the daughter of P.A. Margal was deeply in love with him, ready to marry him. On Leonor's side, she was mad at Rizal having been very quiet. She said that she still loved Rizal, that her decision to marry was not because she no longer loved him. She did it because she thought Rizal no longer loved her. 11 years of waiting was too long. Leonor wasn't getting younger and lamented the fact that Rizal didn't bother to see her. Leonor married Henry Keeping, an Englishman in Manila.
So A. Biarritz interlude. So this is where Rizal went to see Nelly in Biarritz. He finally decided to marry Nelly Bosted. Condition made by Nelly's father. First is abroad, all the troubles abroad and stay with Nelly. And second is practice medicine and stay away from the politics. Third is become a Protestant before marriage. Rizal, however, decided to back down from his proposal, thinking he wasn't ready yet to answer the given condition by Nelly's father. Painting of the El Filibusterismo. In February 1891, Rizal went back to Brazil to edit and revise the novel. By end of May 1891, the novel was ready for printing. He brought the novel to Kent because printing was cheaper there. There was no financial aid sent by the Centro de Propaganda. He had spent all his money for printing costs. He only received 100 pesos from his countrymen as part of his allowance. He was abandoned by the society after just a month. He was consoled by the financial help given by volunteer Ventura. The novel was printed at F. Mayer Van Loo Press, and Rizal gave the original manuscript to Ventura. In Rizal Resigns, before leaving for Manila, he sent a letter of resignation as contributor of the La Solidaridad. He also sent a message to his compatriots his decision to give up his political leadership and fight on his own. This news saddened many propaganda members. He quickly visited Nelly to bid goodbye. He will go back to the Philippines to take care of his family's problems. He boarded the SS Mulbrin, a ship from Marseilles bound to Hong Kong. He was with the company of many friars including Father Venturi, less like Father Damaso.
Dr. Jose Rizal's medical practice in Hong Kong. First part is Dr. Jose Rizal with the German ladies. While eating dinner by himself, Dr. Jose Rizal overheard the German ladies gossiping loudly about him and how lonely he was. The door of the dining room was blown open when the steamer encountered a squall or a gust of air. Then a German lady said, if this man in front of us were a gentleman, he would close the door. When Dr. Jose Rizal became aware of this, he silently shut the door. This incident made the German ladies embarrassed and treated Dr. Jose Rizal with respect and admiration.
Arrival of Dr. Jose Rizal in Hong Kong. On November 20, 1891, Dr. Jose Rizal was welcomed by his old friends, especially Jose Maria Basa. He established his residence in number 5 D. Aguilar Street, number 2 Rednacela Terrace, where he also opened his medical clinic. While on December 1, 1891, Rizal wrote to his parents to ask their permission for him to come home. In response, his brother-in-law wrote him a letter regarding the deportation of 25 persons from Calamba, Laguna, including his father, Neneng, Sisa, Lucia, Pasiano, and the rest of us. He also stated in his letter that he is preparing a letter to the Queen Regent of Spain explaining the Calamba situation in order to secure justice. But if the Queen will not listen, we will write to Queen Victoria of England to appeal for protection in the name of humanity, Dr. Jose Rizal said.
Jose Rizal's family reunion in Hong Kong. Before Christmas of 1891, Rizal's father, Francisco, brother Pasiano, and his brother-in-law Silvestre Ubaldo arrived in Hong Kong. Not long afterwards, his mother Theodora and sisters Lucia, Josefa, and Trinidad arrived. The Christmas of 1891 in Hong Kong was one of the happiest Yuletide celebrations in Rizal's life, and he even wrote to Blumentritt on January 31, 1892 about the pleasant life they're living in Hong Kong.
Rizal practiced medicine in order to earn a living for himself and his family. Dr. Lorenzo P. Marquez, a Portuguese physician who became his friend and admirer, turned over to him many of his patients with eye diseases. He helped Rizal to have many patients. Rizal successfully operated on his mother's left eye, and her mother was able to read and write again. Because of Rizal's skills, he became successful and well-known medical practitioner. Some of his friends from Europe gave him a moral support and substantial medical practice in Hong Kong. From Biarritz, Mr. Bausted Nelly's father wrote to him in March 21, 1892, praising him from practicing his medical profession. Dr. Ariston Bautista-Lin from Paris sent him a congratulatory letter and a book on diagnostic pathology by Dr. H. Virchow, and another book, Trait Diagnostic by Mesnichoc. Don Antonio Vergel de Dios, also from Paris, offered his services for the purchase of medical books and instruments which he might need in his profession.
The Borneo colonization, the land issue in Rizal, hometown of Calamba, had a significant impact. He had been confused by the Dominican price continuing operation to his family up until his journey to Hong Kong. The Spanish price claimed the private property owned by the Rizal family. Rizal wrote to the Governor General at the time, Emilio Terrero, requesting that he look into the Calamba property issue involving his town. Terrero Supreme Court, not less expected, the highest court of Spain, did not evaluate the case fairly. Instead, it sided with the price and issued a directive to force the evacuation of the landowners.
While in Hong Kong, Rizal planned to establish a Filipino colony in Borneo under the protectorate of the North Borneo Company. The British governor granted him permission to establish a settlement on a 190,000-hectare property in North Borneo. However, the Spanish Governor General of the Philippines, Governor Eulogio Desputol, disapproved of the project, saying it was impractical for the Filipinos to develop foreign territories when the Philippines itself needed development. One of the major causes for the failure of Rizal's Borneo colonization project was the refusal of the recent Spanish consul, Governor General Eulogio Desputol, during the Spanish colonization. When General Desputol replaced General Weyler's regime, which was described as terroristic, Rizal already had a plan to move his family to Sabah, which is North Borneo, in order to establish a Filipino colony there. Due to the promises that General Desputol promised to the Filipino nation of a fine program of government, for the reason that the Borneo colonization project, for his perspective, was an anti-patriotic act, which means there will be a shift of nationalities between the Indios and the people of North Borneo. And the patriotism doesn't show when you cultivate foreign soil, which will be their way of living in the land of Borneo. Other than it will be an anti-patriotic act, it would also be an act that would lessen the laborers of the Filipino nation to cultivate the land that was colonized by Spain. Also, it was said that the Governor General Desputol did not favor of the establishment of the Filipino community in Sabah because it was owned by the British colony, which has different trading company from Spain, which will result in the loss of Filipino people if they will be influenced to leave Philippines and live in Borneo, where they are promised a life of luxury, which include a 100,000 hectares of land, a harbor, and good government for 999 years, all for free. Rizal saw this when he was in Hong Kong, that the Englishmen treated their colonized countries better than the Spanish government.
Rizal met with the North Borneo administration representatives to ratify the agreement, but he did not get an opportunity to speak with the governor until April 6, 1892, a day before returning to Hong Kong. Following that meeting, Rizal was prepared to move his family and fellow countrymen to Nueva Calamba or the New Calamba. Rizal decided to bid farewell to the Manila authorities to show them that he had no malicious intent. Rizal wrote to the Governor General Eulogio Desputol and informed them of his plan, but the governor did not even acknowledge receipt of his letter. After waiting for 3 months, he sent a second letter and gave it to a ship captain to ensure that it would reach Governor Desputol. He asked the governor to give the landless Filipinos permission to settle in Borneo. Desputol notified the Spanish Consul General in Hong Kong to inform Rizal that he could not approve Filipino immigration to Borneo, claiming that the Philippines lacked laborers. However, the truth is, Despotol was brainwashed by the friars and the Catholic Church officials who were furious with Rizal by saying that Filipino would begin a revolution against Spain if the colony persisted there. So Despotol called Rizal to Malacanang to consider his appeal. Despite the cautions of his friend, he gladly accepted the Spaniards' offer because he sincerely believed that he had done nothing wrong. On June 26, 1982, Rizal met with Despotol in Malacanang and laid out his plan for Sabah. But before the end of the week, Rizal was arrested, and on July of 1892, Rizal was exiled to a remote corner in Dapitan, Zamboanga, along with throwing away Rizal's dream of making the abundant land of the island of Sabah a new Calamba.
Second homecoming of Dr. Jose Rizal. The arrival of Jose Rizal in the Philippines holds a very great historical significance. After completing his studies in Europe, Rizal returned to his homeland on June 26, 1892. He arrived in Manila aboard the steamship SS España. Rizal's homecoming was highly anticipated by his supporters, who recognized him as a leading figure in the Filipino nationalist movement. However, the Spanish colonial authorities viewed Rizal with suspicion due to his writings and advocacy for political and social reforms in the Philippines. And upon his arrival, a large crowd gathered at the Manila harbor to welcome Rizal. The event turned into a public demonstration with Rizal supporters expressing their enthusiasm and support for his ideals. The authorities closely monitor the situation. Concerned about the potential for unrest, Rizal is very aware of the tense political climate. Maintained a cautious approach during his stay in the Philippines, he sought to avoid confrontations with the colonial authorities and focused on the peaceful means of advocating for change. But unfortunately, Rizal's return to the Philippines was short-lived. The Spanish authorities, fearing his influence and growing popularity, they arrested him on July 6, 1892 on charges of sedition and conspiracy. This led to his subsequent imprisonment and eventual exile to Dapitan in Mindanao. Despite the brevity of his stay, Rizal's arrival in the Philippines symbolized the continuation of his quest for Philippine independence and reform. It further galvanized the nationalist movement and inspired many Filipinos to actively participate in the struggle against Spanish colonial rule. Rizal's legacy as a national hero and his contributions to the fight for independence remain highly revered in the Philippine history. The last Hong Kong letters, or also known as the farewell letter from Dr. Jose Rizal. This was a very significant document written by him during his exile in the Dapitan, Philippines, and this was addressed to the Filipino residents of Hong Kong and was dated December 6, 1896, just a few days before his execution. Relatives and friends of Dr. Jose Rizal was opposed to his decision to return home because it was like risking his life. On June 19, 1892, he spent his birthday in Hong Kong. Evidently, he had a premonition of his death for the following day, June 20. He wrote 2 letters which he sealed, inscribed on each envelope to be opened after my death, and gave them to his friend, Dr. Marquez, for safekeeping. His first letter addressed to my parents, brethren, and friends. The second letter addressed to the Filipinos. And on June 21, 1892, Rizal penned another letter in Hong Kong for General Despujol. He informed the Governor-General of his coming to Manila and placed himself under the protection of the Spanish government. On June 21, 1892, the same day, Rizal and his sister Lucia, widow of Herbosa, left Hong Kong for Manila. They carried a special passport or safe conduct issued by the Spanish Consul General in Hong Kong. The farewell letter is considered one of Rizal's most poignant or most touching and powerful writings. It reflects his deep love for his country and his unwavering dedication to the Filipino people. The letter was smuggled out of Dapitan and eventually reached Hong Kong, where it was published in various newspapers, spreading Rizal's message of hope and nationalism. Tragically, Rizal's life was cut short when he was executed by the Spanish colonial authorities in December 30, 1896. However, his writings, including the farewell letter, became instrumental in inspiring the Philippine Revolution against Spanish rule and continue to inspire Filipinos to these days.
Rizal fell into Spanish trap. Immediately after Rizal's departure from Hong Kong, the Spanish Consul General, who issued issued the government guarantee of safety, sent a cablegram to Governor Dispohul that the victim is in the trap. On the same day, a secret case was filed in Manila against Rizal and his followers for anti-religious and anti-patriotic agitation. Arrival in Manila. Rizal and his sister Lucia arrived in Manila at noon of Sunday, June 26, 1892, on board the small steamer Don Juan. They were met by a platoon of carabiners and their commander. While the carabiners were inspecting their luggage, a captain and a sergeant of the Guardia Civil Veterana or the Manila Police, both in disguise, watched the inspection proceedings. After the customs inspection, Rizal and his sister were allowed to go. The two Rizals registered at Oriente Hotel in Binondo, which was then the best hotel in Manila. That afternoon at 4 o'clock p.m., Dr. Jose Rizal went to Malacanang to pay a courtesy call on Governor Despohul. But he was told to come back in the evening. At 7 o'clock p.m., he returned to Malacanang and was able to have an interview with the Governor General, who granted the liberty of his father but not of his brother.